Hello all, today we're going to dive into something that's crucial for any business or brand, and that's creating a visual brand guidelines document. If you're a designer or you're a business owner, you've probably already heard of brand guidelines. But what exactly are they, who are they for, and why do we use them? Let's break it down. Simply put, it's a set of rules that define how your brand looks, feels and communicates. This document ensures that anybody working on the brand, whether it's a designer, the marketing team or even yourself, knows how to stay consistent with the brand's visual identity. Think of it as a blueprint for your brand. It covers everything from logo usage to typography to colour palettes to social media. It's basically the manual that guides how your brand shows up in the world. Consistency is key when it comes to building trust with your audience. Imagine if Coca-Cola just rocked up one day with a big graffiti style new logo and for some reason they introduced the colour blue. Everybody would be like, what is going on? Well, a guidelines document is in place to stop exactly that happening. It ensures your brand's visuals stay the same from a tiny little business card all the way to a huge billboard sign. Well, it's for anybody involved in the creation or the maintaining of your brand's visual identity. Designers, developers, marketers, SEO people, social media managers, even the CEO should have a copy of this thing, obviously. It keeps everyone on the same page. Designers would use it for typography, for logo placement. Marketers will use it for campaigns so it all looks visually on brand. And business owners, well, they should just know how the brand should look. Okay, now that we know what a brand guidelines document is, who it's for and why we need it, I'm going to show you how we make one. Okay, so we typically start with any guidelines document with just a homepage which has the brand guidelines, visual identity style guide. It has a version number on it. The reason we put a version number on it is because brand guidelines can go through many different versions throughout the life of a brand, when they need to update certain things, introduce new colours, new logos, new layout styles. That's why we always put version number on the front page. We also put the year of it so the consumer knows if this is an up-to-date guidelines document. We also put the name of the designer or the studio on there as well. Now remember, this is a visual identity style guide. It doesn't include anything. It doesn't include any brand strategy in it. It doesn't include tone of voice and how we speak and things like that. This is purely just for visuals. And then second pages, we just put a welcome to the brand's visual guidelines slide in there, just telling them what the purpose of this document is. So I've put, this document is here to guide you through the basic elements of our visual identity system and explain how we use them to build our brand. Understanding and adhering to these guidelines will be essential for maintaining a consistent, unforgettable and meaningful experience for the consumers of Solstice. So it's just a nice little introduction into the guidelines document. Third page, typically we'll have a contents page which outlines everything that's included in the document. This is so the users can come to it, and if they need to quickly go to brand photography or they need to have a little look at what the primary typeface is, they know exactly where to go and they can just, boom, go straight to the page number that they're looking for. Now, I always include mock-ups at the start of a guidelines document. This is because, the reason I do this is because when people are coming to open this document, they're instantly seeing how the branding should be used or how it looks in the real world. So they have a good basic understanding of layout styles, colors, and things like that before they actually deep dive into the rest of the document, instead of waiting to get to the very end of the document to have a look at the brand in action. Now we jump straight into the logo section. Now all brands are going to have a different logo suite, different, you might have a brand that has just a word mark, and you might have a brand that has multiple logos. So a guidelines document is like a piece of string. It depends the size of the brand, how many touch points, but this is a great basis and a great start, as most brands typically have a logo mark, a word mark, and a couple of lockups of that logo. So I always start with the logo mark here, just bang, put the logo straight on the screen. And now what you've got to remember is you don't have to go into depths of why this logo was created, all the fundamental design decisions behind it. This document is just to show the user how to use the branding. So typically I keep it nice and short and just be like, this is our brand symbol, our core signifier. This sun represents our brand and who we are. Our symbol should be the main logo used wherever Solstice is represented, where our word mark and lockup cannot fit. Here's some examples of where our symbol should be used. And then I've just done another little thing for inverted logos and things, which you'll see later on in the document. So like I say, keep it short and sweet. Where's this logo going? Is it our core logo? Is it our secondary logo? No, this is our mark. So just a little description in there. Now, next slide, I'll always put clear space for the mark. So this is just talking about the padding around the logo, and nothing should interfere into that padding. You can see my little description there. And then the next slide will be another slide just on the word mark in the logo suite. So we're talking about this is our brand's word mark. It reflects the personality of our brand. You can see our typeface exudes our intellectual and dare we say sexy vibe. So you can see I've put a little bit of explanation of the design of the logo there, but that's just to give people a feel of what our brand is. And then the word mark here on its own can be used on website headings, letterheads, brand imagery, stuff like that. And then again, going to the clear space there. If you don't know what clear space is the padding around a logo. So here I've put a brief description of what clear space is. So if anyone reading the document doesn't know what it is, they will know after reading. Clear space is used around a logo to ensure its visibility and impact. It creates a protective area that prevents other elements like text or graphics from cluttering or distracting from the logo. By maintaining this buffer zone, the logo remains prominent and legible, preserving its integrity across various applications and enhancing brand recognition. So typically with brands, they'll always have a horizontal or a vertical lockup of their logo. And we put a little description of why we do this. So this is our logo locked up vertically, containing both the word mark and the symbol. Typically this version of our logo will be used when deemed necessary, when the word mark and symbol doesn't look correct when separated on the same canvas. So again, just putting a little description about that. And then again, do your clear space, your padding around that logo. And then you want to jump into any secondary logos or badge variations of within the logo suite. So on this brand, I've just got the one, which is the Solstice Coffee sort of circular badge. And we just, again, do a description of where this logo will be used, where it's not used. I've just put a short little description for this one for this brand. This variation of our logo is for the Solstice Coffee section of our brand. This version could be used on coffee cups, coffee bar signage, and other coffee paraphernalia. Now this slide's quite important, so if your brand is going to be doing partnerships or collaborations with other brands in the future, it's always good to know how your logo will work next to another brand's logo. So the description I've put on this slide is, co-branding clear space ensures that both logos in a partnership are displayed clearly and maintain their integrity. By establishing a dedicated amount of space around each logo, co-branding guidelines prevent overlap or clutter, allowing each brand's identity to stand out. Clear space rules ensures that both logos are visually balanced and aligned, reinforcing the collaboration while preserving individual brand recognition. Now this is super important because you don't want two logos too close together, too far apart, and you just don't know what's going on. So having this slide is super beneficial. And typically the way you define the clear space is take the clear space from your logo, double it and put the other brand's logo in the other section of clear space. So the next slide is placement. You want people to know where your logo is going to be placed correctly and where it's not going to be placed correctly. Now this can be overlooked sometimes because people might just think the logo can go anywhere. If you have a placement slide like this, it stops people just whacking it anywhere. It could be completely horizontal on the screen. It could be, 2/3 down, 3/3 to the right, and it just doesn't look right. So for example, on this slide I've put, as we are a new brand, we want to spread our brand recognition as much as possible. So our logo placements must look like this on brand imagery and marketing materials. In the first one I put, where our word mark and symbol is used, it must be displayed central with our symbol at the top and our word mark at the bottom. Number 2, our word mark can be used as standalone and be centered at the top, etc, etc. So this is going to be different for every single brand. You just got to figure out what works best for the logo suite you've created. Next slide is minimum sizing. So when the logo goes to print or on digital application, you're going to want to tell people how small this logo can go, because you don't want them to make it so small that it becomes illegible and they can't see it and you can't make out what the logo is and it becomes unlegible. But for typically on digital screen, you want to make it as small as possible and see when you start to lose legibility and measure that. Typically it's between 25 pixels and 150 pixels depending on the complexity of the logo and the type and things like that. Like I say, all these is completely different for every single logo design. And then again, you want to repeat this for print. So to do this, you could print out the logo on a piece of paper, measure it with a tape measure. How small can this logo go before we lose impact? So the next slide is logo colors. Now the reason we have this slide with it in the logo section, not the color section of the document, your logo might have different rules when it comes to color than your text or your background and things like that. So we include that in the logo section. So for example, as you can see here with this logo, we have an inverted version of the logo, which is for light on dark. And then we have the regular version, which is dark on light, and you're just telling which colors work together and which don't for the logo itself. And then this slide is pretty self-explanatory, but it's logo don'ts, but you always want to include this because you just don't know how some people might use that logo and you don't want anybody to ruin it. So you're just putting it as clear as day, do not do this to our logo. So, do not skew or stretch our logo, do not outline our logo, don't add a drop shadow, don't rotate. And like I've put in the description, To illustrate this point, some of the more likely mistakes are shown on this page. These rules apply to all elements of the logo, including the word mark and the vertical lockup. This list is meant for illustrative purposes and should be considered for an exhaustive list of mistakes. So it's not just these mistakes that you people don't want to do, it's for everything, but this is just what we are showing, the more obvious ones. Now we're going into colors. So typically you want to have a slide for the brand colors, showing off all the colors in the palette, and you also want to include the hex colors, the RGBs, the CMYKs, and the Pantone for each of these colors. So your hex is your hex code, your digital hex, RGB is digital, CMYK is for print, and Pantone is for more precise printing. So like I say, you can just do a little breakdown of the color palette on the side there, and typically you name the colors after their brand or come up with a more funky name. That's all up to you as a designer. So the next slide is color pairings. This is just showing people what colors work together and what colors don't work together. In the incorrect usage, you want to show how those contrasts don't work between the colors, or even if there's no contrast, they're just not part of our color palette or our color schemes, you'd put the incorrect ones there. Next slide is color hierarchy. So obviously our brand has 4 primary colors and 2 secondary colors, whereas however our main colors is the Solstice Sage, the Solstice Cream, where they take up 40% of the canvas together, and then you've got 10% from the dark green, 10% from the yellow, and then that red and blue are just secondary highlight colors, so they should only be taking up 5% of the canvas each for maximum effect. So the reason we include a color hierarchy slide is so they don't get this back to front. So there's blue everywhere, there's red everywhere, but there's just a tiny little bit of sage in there, and then it's just like, whoa, well, what brand is this from? Do you know what I mean? That's not how the design was intended. So this is telling them exactly what hierarchy to use. And then similar to color pairings, we've got color schemes here. Now the reason I put these in is so when other designers are making social media graphics and things like that, this gives them a color scheme to work with. So you can have the cream on the background, you can have the text as dark green, and then supporting graphics green, and then so on. I've given a list of colours that work well together there. This is a good little slide. I like to include that in a guidelines document. Now that's the end of colour. Now we have typography. So now I'm showing you the primary typeface. So what's the brand's primary typeface? Where does it go? Display and headings. And then just to give an example of every letter in use there. Blow up some of the letters so we can see them in higher detail. And then we're just gonna give a little breakdown of what this type is, what it feels for the brand, why it's part of our brand, why it's our primary typeface and things like that. And now we're going to a secondary typeface. Again, we're highlighting where that's used for, subheadings, labels, titles, and again, blow it up, show more detail to the type, and give a little description to the type, why this is our secondary typeface, why it matches our primary typeface. And then body copy, what does most of the heavy lifting for our brand? What's our typeface for that? For large paragraphs and bodies of text. And again, we just do the same thing there again. Now, not all brands will have 3 typefaces. You might literally just have 1 with a load of different weights. You might have 2, you might have 3, you might have 4. It depends, completely depends on the brand. And yeah. Type size relationship, so this is showing the headline compared to the subheading compared to the body. What sizes does it go down in? What's the order of hierarchy, essentially? So I've wrote, when creating layouts using all 3 typefaces, clear hierarchy can be established by making sure subheadings are no larger than 33% of the ascender height of the headline, and body copy is no larger than 50% of the cap height of subheadlines. Now, this is a great guide to give people if they don't know. So when they're creating graphics or they're creating things for the website, you know, text boxes and things like that, and headings and stuff, they can see at what weight, at what variability they should be doing it at. And then this is just showing exactly how that's done there, so an overview of the type. So this is a pretty important page as well if you've got a particular typeface for your headings or anything for that matter. You can make as many slides as you want on this, but I've created display, leading and tracking. Spacing can make or break our headings. Leading refers to the amount of space between each line of the text. Tracking refers to the space between each letter. It's very important that you use the correct leading and tracking on our primary typeface so it looks correct for our brand's visuals. Using the incorrect units can make it look unreadable and unsightly. Now you can see the difference between the correct leading and tracking example compared to the incorrect leading and tracking example. It completely gets rid of how that brand should look and how that heading and title should look. Like I say, it literally makes or breaks it. So having this information is crucial. Now we're jumping into assets. Now, if the brand has any brand patterns, you'd include them here. Brand pattern, typically it's taken elements from the logo and repeating them. I've just put, and then you just put two little examples of how those patterns might be used. For this brand, it was just, our pattern is literally used for wallpapers, so that's, you can see the bottom right example there, and then the bottom left, it might just be a little accent on maybe a social media graphic or something like that. Then we're going to iconography. If you're making custom icons for your brand, throw them in here. And if the brand has any custom illustrations, throw them in here. This brand doesn't have any. And then we want to go into photography, which often can be overlooked. So you can see here, I've included 4 photos of the typical imagery we want to use for this brand, for social medias and things like that. And I've just outlined the photography style, which photography style captures the joy and spirit of having a good time. The style of people in our photography look effortlessly cool. We use well-lit spaces such as outside for our lifestyle shots. Indoor shots can be used as long as they are well lit. Our photographs have a modern vibe yet a retro aesthetic. Then we talk about photography angles and post-production, if there's any editing that needs to be done after the photographs are taken for our brand and things like that. And then overlays, so I've just shown which color logos work well on top of brand imagery and where they should be placed. Don't place them on any high contrast bits and things like that. This is just to stop people, you know, making a butcher of you know, if they put that Solstice logo on there and it was like dark green, it would completely blend in. You wouldn't be able to read it, become unlegible. So it's just a guide to show people where to put the logos and in what colors and things like that. Social media. So aspect ratio, you know, this is a big one because, you know, the brand might just want to use square images for the Instagram, or they want a bit more real estate and have the 1080 by 1350, or you know, they might have that vertical. So it's making sure people use the correct aspect ratio for social media graphics. And then in the next slide, we're showing what font pairings work well together on our graphics, where the logo's placed, text modifications such as arch insert in text, and colors, again, which colors work well together, and you just refer them back to the color scheme slide. A slide I've put in this one is text on photography. So if there's going to be any post where there's a full photograph and they want to put text over the top of it, for this brand, we allow text layering just so that text pops off a bit, but we can only do it in this style and with this font. Don't use any other fonts, don't use any other colors, or don't use any flat text, or don't put any drop shadows on. We're just showing you exactly how our brand does it to stay in line with our branding. And then we're showing here an example of a grid layout, how our social media should be used. It's crucial that there is a good mix of each within any 9 posts. 30% should be a graphic or photograph reel with text on. We allow for 10% more, but never 10% less. So it's just giving people a guide of how to use the social media, how to upload it, what images, a blend of infographics, a blend of photography, reels, things like that. And then again, social media examples and more social media examples to show. And then we have an additional information slide, which is just reminding people to ensure consistency and maintain the integrity of our brand. It's essential that all brand assets and communications strictly follow the guidelines outlined in this document. And then we've got document references. If it's a new brand and they have none of their own brand photography, take some off the internet, but make sure to reference it in the back of this document. And when the brand finally does have its own photographs, we need to replace them. And font licenses as well. If the brand's using any paid fonts, give them a link, give people a link to go and purchase them at the back. And then, thank you. And always refer back to this document. Now, the brand guidelines document I've showed you in this video was created from a template that I've made. Whether you're creating your first ever brand guidelines document for a client or you're a seasoned graphic designer looking for an awesome template to speed up your workflow, this template has you covered. Gone are the days of spending hours and hours and days and weeks creating guidelines documents from scratch for every single client you work with. This template is adaptable to all styles of brand. You just simply drop the brand's assets into it, saving you time creating documents and getting back to what you truly love, and that is designing. It's a 47-page, fully customizable template for Adobe Illustrator. It's got an example of a real brand in there, as you've seen, which you can just toggle on and off. I've created little tips throughout the document, again, which you can toggle on and off. That helps guide you through the creation of it. There is absolutely no lorem ipsum in this thing. Every single page has been written to tell you exactly what to write in that section. And some of the pages you don't even have to write anything. You just need to simply replace the brand's name. So no more second guessing, well, what do I write here? It's done for you. If you want this template to speed up your workflow and leave your clients feeling confident that they know how to use their branding, then click the link in the description, and I'm also giving you 20% off with the code YouTube20. I really hope you can take something from this video, and I'd love to hear any feedback in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.